election fraud of biblical proportion? This week on Voice for Restoration Broadcast. Let's go. Hey, greetings, folks. Glad you are with me today for Voice for Restoration Broadcast. Please go ahead, if you would, go ahead and hit subscribe, hit like the video, and if you would, turn on your notifications. In the comments section, you'll see ways that you can support our ministry and you can receive our podcast that comes out once a week as well. So, this is a very interesting week as the Trump campaign and their lawyers began to give opening arguments to the press. I find it funny that the press, who really didn't need any evidence for almost 4 years against Donald Trump and Russian collusion, now all of a sudden demands evidence. Even Tucker Carlson demanded evidence. And I think that it's really important for us to understand that this is not a political game. This is a legal battle. And when you have a legal battle, the only ones who actually go to the press, run to the press, and begin to falsify things in the press are really the defense team. They try to turn people away from their client and stuff like that as quick as they can. This, if true, what they are claiming, which I tend to believe that we have widespread corruption within our election system that has been going on for actually 20 years. Apparently, they know that, and this has been known, this is what's so sad about it, is everyone knows that these systems were used to switch votes from Bernie Sanders to Hillary Clinton in 2016. Bernie Sanders himself knows about this, but he took a payoff from the Clinton campaign to walk away. And he bought himself his third or fourth nice luxury home. And it's amazing how socialists have multiple homes. It's something that always, surprises me. And I think what we need to understand is that we are watching the overthrow of America in the election process. And from what, Cindy Powell came out this Saturday night and she spoke, and then there was some distancing, I guess. They didn't like that she said some of the things that she said. I really don't think they want to try this in the press. And I think Cindy Powell needs to stay away from doing interviews. It's very tempting right now to do that. I think she's ticked off. I think it's part of her problem is that she's really upset with what has happened and what she has seen with her own eyes. And for that reason, she is kind of losing her gasket a little bit. But I know this, that they don't make claims they can't back up. Now, there's several players that are filing lawsuits. It's not all the Trump campaign. Some of the Republicans in Pennsylvania, some are people in Georgia, some are citizens, just average citizens who feel their vote was taken away. And this is going to have to work through the courts, and it's going to work in an expedited situation here. And I think it's important to remember that in the year 2000 with George Bush and Al Gore, that Al Gore declared himself to be the president, was setting up his cabinet, and it wasn't until December 10th, somewhere around there, that the court put a stop to what he was doing, and George Bush was then now president-elect. It's the same kind of things they had, nervousness, he's not going to be able to transition and all this stuff. That is all gobbledygook speak, okay, about what to do. But when you see who Biden is picking for his cabinet, you'll see how corrupt this country's political system has become. Now, the big question we got to ask ourselves, what does it mean when she says it's going to be biblical? Cindy Powell used the word biblical when the fraud. It's going to be biblical when they expose it. Folks, I want to tell you, I don't know if we really understand how deep, how corrupt the government is. The government is extremely corrupt. But if this goes deep enough, if we can actually take that pill, that red pill, and go down the rabbit hole here and go after, if the government, or I should say if the FBI, I don't even know if the FBI has the guts to do it. I don't think the DOJ does. DOJ is corrupt. And you go, well, William Barr is not corrupt. William Barr is an appointee. He's a figurehead. They know he's got limited time. And because they know he's got limited time, they just hide it from him. I mean, FBI Director Wray held it from Barr that they had this laptop of Biden Hunter and all the crimes committed on there. I mean, Giuliani said this week explain to me how the FBI has this laptop for 10 months and there are crimes on it and they have done nothing with it in 10 months. That's a good question. That's a real good question, because whether you like it or not, and I don't like it, we have two systems now in America. We have the aristocrats, the elites that don't get tried for anything, don't ever get shut down for anything, don't ever get told that what they're doing is illegal. They're not only bought out, but they are buying out government officials at a high pace. You know, the saying always of government officials is they don't make enough money, and that the temptation for being for greed and for buyouts and bribes is extremely high. And America has got to stand up to this. And America cannot sit there. And it's not just America on the right, America on the left, because to be honest with you, Bernie Sanders was defeated through this system. And he knows this. And that's why, you know, Biden made the deal with him to kind of step back and walk away. And who knows? As far as we know, Biden might have been elected through this system. We don't know yet. That's how vast and great this corruption is. And the Democratic Party knows this. And a lot of the people know this. And that's why they're all demanding Trump to step down immediately. And you have Republicans too. And that's the thing that I think that we have to, we constantly say, and we have to remember this, it's not Republican Democrats. It's righteousness versus evil. It's corruption versus truth. It's the right way versus the evil way. You know, it's corruption's evil, bribes are evil. And it's one of the things that actually overthrew Israel. It's one of the things that God was greatly disturbed about Israel. We talked about they were taking bribes. There was no righteous judges anymore. Read Isaiah 1-5, and you'll hear this in really all the prophets. And I think it's important that you understand that in this hour, the prophets have spoken about Trump in two terms. And a lot of people came out and said, oh, see, they were wrong. And I think we just need to hold on a little bit. And I don't think, even if it turns out that Trump doesn't stay in office, I don't think we want to be careful before we stone the prophets, because there's a lot of things that go in there. And, you know, I've talked about this a lot of times about the responsibility of a prophetic word for the people to work. And I spoke about this, you know, in 1 Kings chapter, I think it's chapter 8, Solomon finishing the temple. Let me just pull this up so I get the right chapter for you. Solomon, finishing the temple, starts praying, and he actually prays this wonderful prayer, and he says this line, and I want you to hear this because it's really important to understand why the church doesn't know how to rule. Oh, I'm going to get a lot of heat for that one. We are called to reign and rule, but we don't know how to do it. Because most Christians, the most things they've ever had is a job, and they really have not been they've not been trained to rule. They've been trained to do the little task, but they don't know how to govern. They don't know how to rule. They don't know how authority structures work. And they think they have all authority, which is one thing that people just, I get this a lot. Christians have all authority. No, we do not. Jesus does. And Jesus gives that person some authority, and he gives that person some authority. And you have authority in that area, and you have authority in that area, but you don't have authority in both areas. And to think that you have all authority is actually not biblical. It's not sound doctrine, and it needs to be refuted. Jesus, he never said the church has all authorities. Jesus says, I have all authority in heaven and on earth. Jesus, as the last Adam, received all that authority that was in the earth, that was given to the first Adam, has now been given to him. But because he's also resurrected, he has also received all that authority in heaven as well. All authority, heaven and earth. That's Jesus. All right, but in chapter 8 of First Kings, I want you to listen. I don't want to take too long. Verse 24, it says this: "You have kept what you promised your servant David, my father. You have both spoken with your mouth and fulfilled it with your hand, as it is this day." He's talking about the building of the temple. Now, I want to ask you, if you study in all First Kings, who built the temple? And you will find that there was a lot of labor, a lot of labor in building the temple. So what does it mean when Solomon says that you have fulfilled it with your hand? And see, what people don't understand is when God speaks, the church is supposed to rally. See, one of our big issues is we don't believe the prophets. And I'm going to just be honest with you, you're not going to build a kingdom without the prophets. And I'll do that for another lesson, but it's not going to happen. And you won't build a kingdom rightly without the prophets. Prophets help people stay liquid, fluid, hearing the voice of God, because it's not just obeying his word. You're not supposed to be led by the word of God, but by the Spirit of God. And a lot of people are led by the word, and the word is good. The word will teach you, instruct you in righteousness, but it won't instruct you in direction. It will instruct you in righteousness, but not in direction. In other words, sometimes I have two options that are equally good, that job or that job. Which one do I take? Well, now I got to be led by the Spirit, not by the word. Now I can judge by the word, that one. But you know what? If I'm led by the Spirit, God might say, I need you to go this way. And you might go, I don't want to go that way. You might need to be a Daniel, a Joseph. You might have to go into this unrighteous system so that you can bring God's goodness and kingdom into that system. So when God prophesies, when Solomon knows that David wanted to build, his father wanted to build this temple, David actually prepared for it. And then Solomon then had to have the wisdom to do it. He did it. It took him 7 years. And he builds this temple. And he says, but by your hand. What does that mean? And that's talking about the hand of favor on God that causes you to be prosperous in your way. And we'll talk about that some other time. But my point here is this, that the church, if it doesn't listen to its prophets, don't blame it when things don't come to pass, because you have a responsibility to listen to the prophets. The problem we have is that we don't honor prophets, we don't listen to prophets, and we don't pray for the prophets. And that's one of our issues we have dealing with the prophetic ministry. So that's all I want to talk about. We're going to see what's going to happen here. And I think there are going to be some lawsuits filed this week on the election, but don't expect anything to be really finished or complete. This might actually take, because we are dealing, in 2000, we were dealing with one case. We're dealing with maybe 100 filings of lawsuits. And it might actually turn out that Trump did win in a landslide, and that the Republicans won in a landslide and might have actually won back the House. That would be remarkable. So let's just pray. Let's be patient. Let's pray and let the hand of the Lord fulfill what he's doing. Let it be upon Giuliani and Cindy Powell and their team up there of lawyers. I pray that the hand of the Lord be upon them. I think that what could actually happen here, I don't know if we're going to go deep enough. That's my question. We have a tendency to cover up corruption because we think it will hurt our nation. So we cover up corruption, like Kennedy's assassination. I don't believe that was a lone guy with a gun, even though, we can argue whether he was the only one who shot. The fact he gets killed the next day by Jack Ruby and no one was guarding this, someone had to let Jack Ruby in there to shoot him. And I just think, trust me, after Kennedy got assassinated, there's a lot of things that have been covered up about that. And there is talk that the CIA was involved in that. And the CIA is extremely corrupt. And the FBI has now also become extremely corrupt. And not that all men are corrupt in it, but there's a lot of guys in there trying to do a good job, but do not have, they are hamstrung to do it, and they cannot do it. And I don't know, but I think we're in for, even if Trump wins, I think we are going to see an absolute biblical proportion unfolding if Trump holds out and wins this thing. And I don't know if it's going to be, how do I say this? If we're ready for it. If we're ready for it. That's the question. And I talked about this Sunday. You can see it on the Gate Facebook page. It'll eventually be on the Gate YouTube channel. That every time there's been an awakening, it led to a war. First awakening led to the Revolutionary War. Second awakening led to the Civil War. Because when people are awakened to the truth of the kingdom, they go after this declaration of all men are created equal and deserve these inalienable rights, and we fight for them. And we might find ourselves in that battle again. And I don't know if the church is ready for that. But we'll see. Okay? So keep yourself in the Lord. Keep yourself prayed up. Keep your faith high. Don't let your faith be slammed to the ground by the unrighteousness of men. And remember this. God is an authority. He saw this coming. That's why he gave prophets to speak, so we'd hang on. And I think it's important that we honor the prophets. I am a prophet. I didn't have a word about it. I was ordained a prophet. I'm now apostle. But I mean, I moved prophetically as well. I did not get a word on this one, except for that we had to pray that was going to be a real battle through the election, and that the church really need to hunker down and pray. And I'm hoping that we can understand that, do that, and honor that. I pray that you are well. I pray that you're good. Again, in the comment sections, ways to support, share the video, like the video. Love you guys. And I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.